content in this podcast reflects the personal experience of the guest only and is not intended, nor should it be taken as medical claims or medical advice. Please consult a medical professional and be safe. Less is more. This is the Kratom Science Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Gallagher, blog and social media writer for KratomScience.com, your source for all things Kratom. While serving in the Army, my guest injured her back on what began her chronic pain journey. She was later diagnosed with degenerative disc disease, osteoarthritis, fibromyalgia, IBS, and cervical stenosis. In 2017, she discovered Kratom, which she calls a huge blessing. This is Marcelle Morfin, and this is her Kratom story. Okay, so where are you from?
I'm in Woodland, California.
Okay.
Currently.
And you served in the Army?
I did, yeah. I joined in 2003 in the delayed entry program, and then I joined officially in March of 2004.
Where were you stationed?
North Carolina, Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Cool. That's where a lot of people go for their basic, right?
Yeah, I was a finance specialist, so they have a main base in South Carolina for that, for the training for that MOS. And so that's where I went initially for my training, and then I was stationed in North Carolina following that.
And you had a back injury, you said, while you were in the Army in 2006. Was that the start of some of your chronic pain issues?
Oh, yeah, that was the original start of any chronic pain issues for me. So in about October of 2006, I believe it was October 2nd to be exact, but I could be a little off on the exact date, but it's pretty, you remember things like that when you get injured generally. And so, I was running and I just had a sharp pain shoot through my right leg from my low back. We were running on pavement, which wasn't probably the best, but, and so then that's where it began. And I went to the medical, the VA center there, not the VA center, I'm sorry, the WOMAC Army Medical Center. And that's where, I went through the process of trying to get help, essentially, physical therapy, things like that.
At this point, when you injured your back, was that when you were diagnosed with degenerative disc disease?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. They said that I had a bone spur and some degenerative disc disease that they thought may be causing, the continued pain, essentially, I guess.
You said you were also diagnosed with osteoarthritis?
So I think that was in 2012 that I was diagnosed with the osteoarthritis official diagnosis,
Is that a completely different condition, or did this all come from your back injury?
It's all pretty much my spine. It's pretty with that part of it. Yeah. It's not caused my neck issue was not caused from the low back issue. The neck issue was that I was born unlucky, I guess. I'm 5'2", and so people with shorter statures, I guess, have smaller necks generally. So we're at a much greater risk for cervical stenosis that can lead to myelopathy, which is spinal cord compression.
Back in 2015, you were diagnosed with IBS, and then 2017 fibromyalgia.
The cervical stenosis was also diagnosed in 2017 as well.
This all sounds terrible.
It was. It was a bit much for me.
Yeah. What is fibromyalgia like? I always ask people that because it seems to be part mental and part physical pain. What is that like?
I mean, I think stress definitely can increase the pain of fibromyalgia. I experienced that way too many times to deny that it could be true. It certainly is. And fibromyalgia, I had so many odd symptoms. I have them somewhere, but I'm not going to go through the list. And honestly, a majority of that was due to my neck and currently still is. I have a neurogenic bladder now, permanent damage to my bladder essentially, because the VA didn't want to do an MRI. So then, that's what happens. I waited 3 years. I shouldn't have, or actually I waited from the time I started asking them, and I think it was 2013, they did x-rays and everything, but.
Yeah, this was for your neck issue. You wanted to get an MRI. Why did they deny you?
I don't know, honestly, other than monetary. And they thought I didn't know what I was talking about, I guess. I mean, it showed on my x-rays I had degenerative disc disease in my neck, and it wasn't like, I don't believe it said mild. It might have said mild. I think it was mild to moderate. So they couldn't, you can't see those things on an MR or an x-ray. I'm not trying to, fault the VA at this point. I don't want to talk bad about about them specific. They've been really good to me in the last few years. I've been very fortunate, but prior to that, they just didn't want to listen, didn't think I knew my body. And unfortunately, I had extremely strong gut instinct about it. And so, here we are. But so it could have been a lot worse. I could have had a lot more permanent damage, and I don't. So I'm very, very grateful for that.
Okay. And so you must have been prescribed pain medication. So what was that like for you? What was that experience?
Gosh, since 2006, I had been prescribed off and on some pain meds. I've never been great about taking medication anyway. I just have an aversion to, especially pills. I don't know. I'm very I just don't like synthetic stuff, I guess, honestly. And so I didn't keep getting prescriptions. I decided that, I'd rather suffer, essentially.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, I'm like, they probably would have cut me off anyway. And then where would I have been? But I'm a little bit thankful that I didn't, because then in 2016, they were taking a bunch of people off of them, cold turkey and things like that. And I don't know, that would have been a lot. I mean, it already was a lot to deal with when I came across Kratom, but because I was in a severe amount of pain. But
yeah, was your aversion maybe like, were you afraid you were going to be addicted? And I mean, I know most people with chronic pain have a dependency, which is a little different.
That's interesting. I didn't, I wasn't worried about addiction at all. Which is a little bit funny because not funny, but it's interesting because my parents were in fact alcoholics. I have a long line of that in my family. And I knew that I didn't have a problem with it though, because I had drank in my younger years and never developed a problem. And so that was it really didn't cross my mind in that regard. But, and becoming dependent on something, which it's kind of, interesting now because I'm fine with Kratom. I don't, and I never felt super weird on pain meds. I was never one of those people that says, oh, it made me loopy. It made me kind of, I was in pain enough when I took them that they worked on my pain and didn't make me super out of it, if that makes sense. So.
When did you first hear about Kratom or Kratom?
Right, I know. I was like Kratom, potato. I don't know. I know. So I was searching for just support and everything, and it was in April of 2017. I was in a fibromyalgia support group where it was being discussed and talked about, and I was just at my wit's end because I had become suicidal and was starting to plot and plan some way to end my life, and I had some ideas, unfortunately. And so I came across that and ordered some, got some, and didn't work for me. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, seriously. But by this time, my pain had started to get just a little bit better to the point I didn't feel like, I would probably have done anything at that point. But if I, wasn't optimistic about, Kratom working, then I don't know what would happen. So anyway, I went and ordered some from a different vendor that was I feel probably a little more reputable, but sometimes I know Kratom doesn't work for people. Just different brands won't work for this person, but then it'll work for another person.
Yeah.
So the second time it worked, and I was blown away. I was just ecstatic. I just remember I was crying, because you just don't expect that. I mean, it brought my pain down to like a 2, probably.
Wow.
When I had been at like in 8, 9, I don't want to be extreme, like 10, but I was getting there. And I thought, I just, you can't see an end in sight when you're in it a lot of times. And sometimes, it could be weeks on end where you are just in a horrible pain flare, or, what they like to call in the chronic pain community. And you just don't know when it's going to end. I think that uncertainty messes with people, and then thinking, I'm going to have to go through this again and again and again, so. For sure, Kratom was huge. I mean, just life-changing, honestly.
That's what we hear from so many people. Some people don't believe these stories. I don't understand why you would tell this story if it wasn't true. But,
right, yeah, I understand, though. I mean, to a certain extent, some of why, people are leery to want to believe.
Because there are people who are addicted to stuff, and they'll say, oh, this is the greatest thing ever, and then they'll end up with an addiction problem. But you have this chronic pain condition, and you're going to need something to deal with it. I mean, a lot of people have the opioids work for them.
I mean, yeah, and it's not that they didn't work for me when I was in pain and had taken them. They did. The whole point is, like, the one time I went to go when my whole back was in spasm, the doctor told me at the ER, and they were just, this was when all the stuff was starting. They were super weird about giving me anything. And I was just like, I don't care what you give me. Like, just give me something, please. They gave me tramadol, which I'm not supposed to take ibuprofen. So I'm like, am I allowed to even take tramadol? Okay. But it is what it is. I was fine. I was like something, and it did help. It definitely took the edge off and everything. But
yeah, does tramadol have ibuprofen in it, or acetaminophen?
Yeah,
maybe
it's a really strong, like ibuprofen, I believe, in NSAID. Yeah, like a super strong NSAID.
Which is actually, those are like harder on your organs than straight up opiates are. So it's kind of strange that they even give you that. Why don't they just give you the opioid?
Yeah, because it was in the middle of what they called the opioid crisis, which I'm like, but my doctor at the VA told me never to touch ibuprofen again. I think I have some scarring in my stomach and stuff too. So it's just,
okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you know about the VA, but they are known for prescribing 800 milligram ibuprofen.
Is that because of, like, so many veterans had and I guess have addiction problems?
I'm not sure about that. I think that's just always been their go-to. Initially, it was always ibuprofen, even for my ex-husband, and then he ended up in ICU with a bleeding ulcer. So he couldn't take that anymore either. It's not a good drug whatsoever. But
you take Kratom now. Do you have a doctor that you could talk to about your Kratom use?
I haven't talked to like one of my specific doctors. When I got my compensation and pension exam through the VA, I did let them know that I would be dead without Kratom. They said, they saw how bad I was when I went in, and they were just kind of like, oh my gosh. And the lady was like, I said, oh, this is not as bad as I can be, and she was just like, what do you mean? I said, I take Kratom, and without it, there's just no way. I would probably even be at this appointment, essentially. Like I definitely, my pain was extreme, and the Kratom, it just brings it down, but still, it brings it down enough to where you don't want to hurt yourself. And she was just fascinated. She just was taking all these notes and like, I'm going to look into this. And she was kind of upset, I think, because when I got out of the military, I was medically discharged due to my low back. They gave me nothing. They gave me 0%, but they did pay me out a separation pay. So, I'm like, I'm not trying to be, and it was my fault. I was going through so much with my husband at the time that I had to take care of him too. He had a bunch of health stuff. Like I just didn't have the time to fight, and I didn't have it in me at that point. it just, my low back wasn't bad enough. Now I think this is why I'm like fighting for Kratom too. It's like, it's not just about me though, because I know I have quite a few friends in the community and everything too, but people need this. It's life-saving.
Aren't they supposed to get, for a medical discharge, they're supposed to give you like a pension? Or am I wrong there?
Well, no, I got separation pay, but the way that the doctor looked at it, and after doing research, and I have done quite a bit, they should have at least given me 10%. Yeah. So they screwed up big time, and she saw that, and so I think that's helped me to get approved a little bit, because they saw basically, the military kind of screwed me over a bit.
That sucks. I hate everybody I talk to that's a veteran has been screwed in some way by the military. That sucks.
I don't know. They don't want to pay out. I get it. If they paid everybody, it wouldn't be. But like, at least do your job and do it appropriately,
Yeah.
So
how do you prepare it? Do you do toss and wash, or do you make a tea?
No. So I have a small like teacup, and I just fill it with probably not even an inch of what, maybe, about an inch of water, I guess, probably, and heat it for 30 seconds and put my teaspoon of Kratom in and stir it up. Usually sometimes I'll wait to drink it, but a lot of times I'll just put a little ice in it, cool it off to room temperature, because your body absorbs things better at room temperature. And I'll drink it that way. And then I chase it with some water. I'll take a drink. And then, especially if it's gritty, I just get it down usually in 2 gulps and chase it with some water, and I'm good to go.
And how much, what's your average dose?
Gosh, I think it's about 3.5 to 4 grams, if I had to guess, maximum. Yeah. And I do that 2 to 4 times a day. It just depends on my pain. And also, I don't work. And so I'm not going to take something unnecessarily if I know I'm going to be sitting for hours and hours. A lot of times I have a recliner and I lay in it and put my heat pad on and different things. So it's like, I don't just rush to take my Kratom all the time. I'm not like that at all with it.
And so you've been taking it for 5 years. Has your dose ever gone up?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. I did the Oliver Grunman study thing, and then I realized I probably messed up. Initially, I did, because of course I started with like 1/4 teaspoon probably, and then so I did, and I found my sweet spot to be a teaspoon. So yeah, I did. I messed with it, tweaked with it, but I was adamant I wasn't going to go over a teaspoon. And so, and I'm actually getting ready to take another break, and I'm going to take a 2-week break. So, from Kratom, just to do like a reset, so that'll be painful, but it'll be all right. I'll make it through.
It just seems like everybody that has success with it takes breaks and doesn't increase their dose while they're taking it, and it's just a tolerance thing. It's part of doing Kratom, and because there's a way to use Kratom that's successful, and then there's a way to use it where you can abuse it, and it'll, at the very least, if it doesn't hurt you and you get weird side effects, it's going to cost you a lot of money, and we don't want to see that. We want to see people take as small a dose as they can, and now I have my Kratom, so I get that well-being feeling. And
for sure, I know people, when they say euphoria, it always makes me laugh, because I'm like, it doesn't mean like high euphoria. It just means like feeling good, geez. It's just interesting to me how people try to twist things and make things negative, I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's like the same thing as coffee, but it's almost like coffee, as in when you drink a good cup of like cappuccino, you're like, it makes you feel good. It's like, it has different effects, of course, but it's sort of like that. It's not getting high at all.
Yeah, the way people act, like, like, I don't know why people would want to be all out of it, but I mean, I guess that's an addiction thing, and I've definitely, now I finally come around, and being in the Kratom community and just seeing the struggles of people. I used to be kind of angry at people who had addiction issues. I'm not going to lie, and it's not really, I understood that it wasn't fully their fault, but, at the same time, it was just, I just didn't have an understanding. And now I feel like I have such a much better understanding. And yeah, this Kratom has saved a lot of people's lives that have drug addiction problems. So, and even opioid addiction or even dependence issues. People want to get away from that. They use Kratom to do it. But you're right, they have to be responsible, and that's a huge, huge part of it.
So, have you ever have any weird side effects or anything like that with Kratom?
From Kratom? Kratom? No.
Or Kratom?
No, never.
Yeah. Yeah.
Has anyone else said that they have? I'm like, I don't know. When I take my breaks, I get the runny nose, and of course my body will hurt quite a bit more. But yeah, I just get a runny nose pretty much. And that's the only thing I've ever had. I mean, maybe I'm just lucky, because I know some people said they get restless leg syndrome or something like that. But
is this with like when you stop using? Is it like a withdrawal? Is the runny nose a withdrawal symptom?
I think the runny nose is for me for sure. Okay. Yeah. And then I don't know, the body aches could be partly that, but it honestly just feels like, my fibros like coming full blown on, basically. So, and before, no, I mean, I really do think is my fibro, honestly, and in the back pain and stuff, just not being as controlled with the Kratom is why I hurt. That's my opinion. I don't know with absolute certainty. If, a little of the aches may come from that. I'm not going to say that I know 100%, so.
Do you use, you're in California, so marijuana's totally legal there. Do you use that at all? I saw you post on Twitter about some of that.
I do, yeah. I mean, I just don't post as much. I mean, we led the way in 95 for all that, the legalization and stuff. And the gentleman who has what is it? The Pharmacopoeia?
Hamilton.
Or no, the other guy I think you interviewed recently.
Ethan Nadelman?
Yes, he helped get it passed, right? Yeah, I think I learned that from your show.
Yeah, he was a big guy in the marijuana reform stuff, and Psychoactive is his podcast.
That's what I'm sorry. Yeah. I confused, but
Hamilton has a great podcast too, though. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they do really. Yeah.
Does the weed help with pain at all?
You know what? So the edibles do.
Yeah.
But see, my problem with that also is I have to take them consistently, like every single day, basically. If I skip like 3 to 4 days, I notice it's almost like it has to build up in my system too, because it'll take 3 to 4 days for me to start feeling pain relief from edibles, and I'll generally take them at night before I go to bed, and I don't take my Kratom. Generally, when I do that, the edibles, not the but smoking it for me can increase my pain. So it
increases it. Okay.
And I don't know if that's a fibromyalgia thing or any, I'm not really sure, or maybe it's a brain thing for me. I don't know. I know some people say it helps them. So it's very individual, just like Kratom can be. It doesn't always work for everybody, and so.
Of course, like weed changes your brain, so it might have you focusing on the pain more. do you think that might be it?
Yeah, I didn't think of that. Yeah. I mean, that's possible. I don't feel like I'm focused on it more when I, have smoked, but it's very possible because I used to have a lot of stomach issues because of the IBS and everything too, and I still have quite a bit of the way issues. But so I would smoke that for nausea. Okay. But I have to 3 hits is it. Like I can't go above that or my back will start to hurt kind of a thing.
Huh.
Like it'll start the aching and everything will start to come on and then my whole body. Yeah, it's interesting. It's just, I just don't know why, but so I'll smoke a little before dinner a lot of times because I just don't have the appetite, and I haven't taken my Kratom right before dinner or anything. It's not like, because that can suppress your appetite. So, but yeah, I don't know what it is, but yeah, so I use that for that. I've used it for anxiety, and it's been a tremendous help, the smoking. And now I'm trying to stay away from that more anyway. It's just plus the expense and everything, and so I'm trying to adjust the edibles, and then. Yeah, I do take the Kratom as well, but I don't generally take them together, so.
Yeah. It's interesting how complex these things, because our metabolisms are all slightly different. especially with kratom, like the alkaloid profiles are different. It's different in fresh leaf than dried, and it affects different metabolisms in different ways, and it's just kind of an interesting thing. Do you think maybe, we should have the profile, because when you get weed, you get a whole list of the cannabinoids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe like some of the? Do you think there should be an alkaloid profile, if that should be a regulation? Because it would be nice, like once we get an alkaloid profile, people will be able to, because some people buy the high THC weed, some people buy half THC, half CBD. Do you think that should be a law?
That would be an amazing thing, and that's a great idea. I know I was only focused mostly on mitragynine and 7-hydroxymitragynine, because those are the two alkaloids that the scientists have said could be most problematic potentially, if they're increased, percentages or whatnot. So that would be awesome. I think that would be great to tie into the regulations for sure, because we have to do something. This is. We should know those things. You're 100% correct. And I mean, like with THC, so you have to know enough about all that. I'm not, great with marijuana either. I know some things, and I've done a lot of research, but I know higher THC doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get more high or anything like that. You have to look at the CBD to the THC, and there's just all this stuff you have to consider. So it's kind of it's the science. It's pretty cool, but.
And there was a study recently that came out that is showing, I mean, when I talked to Dr. McCurdy, he was like, yeah, that 7-hydroxy is the one that you got to watch, because it's not present in the leaves, in the fresh leaves, so they have less reports of like weird side effects, or like none basically over in Malaysia. But here we get, because it's oxidized, when it's dried out, here we get, but it's usually in like very heavy users. They're like, they get these, my hair's falling out. Have you ever gotten? You've got no weird side effects like that, have you?
No. Yeah. Oh no. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. It's not funny at all. But and oftentimes something that was pointed out in one of my groups recently too on Facebook is that we're all getting older. I'm 46. Like if my hair starts falling out, I'm going to figure it's probably my change. I'm going through menopause or whatever. Like the first thing I'm not going to look at, it's not going to be kratom. It's just not, not after 5 years of use.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, just start pausing that. I mean, that's just my, opinion. I'm not a medical researcher or anything like that, but.
Yeah, with the doses you're taking, it just seems to be like, somebody will go on Reddit and say my hair's falling out, and somebody will be like, well, how much do you take today? Oh, 40 grams a day, 50 grams.
Oh my gosh.
No wonder.
I don't know. I don't even understand how people can ingest that much. I'm not. Oh, I guess
I would be sick.
Right? That's where I'm just like, what are they? But a lot of them are probably recovering off of harder drugs, like maybe heroin, something like that. That's all I can figure, because that's a crazy amount. Yeah.
You also talked about the issue with, once they started cutting people off in 2016, you put that chart up on Twitter that, this is what I'm afraid of if kratom gets banned, because I know people in pain are going to need something, and we're having such a hard time. They're having a hard time getting anything prescribed by the doctor. But as 2016, you can trace that chart, the overdoses started skyrocketing on illegal fentanyl.
It's ridiculous that they've tried to blame opioids to the degree that they have, honestly, like prescription opioids specifically. Because in all reality, they were pressing pills that looked like they might have been legit prescription pills, but they were not. They were fentanyl. You know what I mean? And so that's what caused a lot of this mess to begin with, it is the illicit fentanyl that's killing people above and beyond prescription opioids. So I'm not saying prescription opioids don't kill people or haven't. I'm just, after looking at the data over the last 4 to 5 years, I keep coming back and I'm like, no, I just can't get on board with what they're saying, and trying to ban, basically opioid prescribing with the prop and all that. It's just not, it's harming people, and Kratom's a harm reduction tool, and it's amazing.
I did have Claudia Morandi on, and we talked about that whole issue. She's pretty cool. So is there anything going on in California, or maybe your city or county, with the Kratom laws?
We have, there's some people in California that want to see it banned and everything, but there's nothing. So what happened was they're putting through a bill, some legislation about psychedelics, and we were hoping to get Kratom added to that, but it didn't work out. They didn't want to, or they weren't able to. I think it was really, they're unable to at this time is the phrasing that was given in the email, regarding that, adding the KCPA to this psychedelics legislation. We were, trying to do that because it does have some wording about hallucinogens that was a little concerning. And if they tried to go and say Kratom is a hallucinogen and put it in that category, we were afraid, because it's like 4 to 7 ounces you can have maximum of the substance. So that was just like, that's not a change. If they're looking to put Kratom as a hallucinogen, which makes no sense to me, to be honest, because I don't know what they're talking about. Maybe if you have some severe mental health issues, which I've had pretty significant mental health issues, but I mean, it's never made me, do or act crazy or anything like that.
Yeah, it's definitely not a hallucinogen. I've seen that a lot, and one of the claims that it was a hallucination, they cited Dr. McCurdy for an early study he did, but the study was about quote-unquote legal highs in general, and it had salvia divinorum on it, which is certainly a hallucination, but that's what they referred to as Kratom as a hallucination. It was a complete mistake. It should have been caught in peer review, but and then it just kind of like took off. Like there's rehab center guys are saying it and blah blah blah.
I think that people maybe have reported that, but who knows what else they were taking with it, or it's just we don't know enough. So it's like, really, I know. I mean, for me, pure unadulterated Kratom that's not increased with the percentage of 7-hydroxymydrogynin, no, it doesn't do anything like that. Not even close. It's just.
Yeah, even with the 7-hydroxy, it's just a higher opioid kind of effect.
Right, it's not necessarily hallucinogenic. It doesn't work that way. I mean, but yeah, that's so. I mean, yeah, me and Dion, she was working on that. She really is the one who, from like January of 2021, started. She was doing it on her own, and she tries to give me credit, and I'm like, you know what, you did most of it. I'm not, I'm comfortable taking a lot of credit for that, but she was busting her butt and just, I don't know what it is right now. Maybe they just want to focus on, stuff they think's therapeutic, but little did they know Kratom can be therapeutic too. I mean, so anyway, I know that that's in the research and everything too. So hopefully eventually we can get them on board here in California.
Yeah, that's good. And you got a lot of good activists out there. You got Cammie Davis.
Oh, Cammie's probably about 40 minutes from me, and Dion is in Sacramento. Yeah. She's like 25 minutes, depending on traffic, of course, because our traffic is horrible out here. But yeah, we have, not trying to put anybody on blast or anything as far as California goes, but we've really not had much response here for having, all the congressional districts. We have over 50, and I believe there's 1 or 2 that doesn't even have a representative, which isn't supposed to be legal, but anyway. But yeah, we have so many districts, and yet the volunteer level, we maybe have had 10 volunteers, and most of them fall by the wayside. They're not advocating. They're not really doing much of anything. We might have 2 or 3 outside, Cammie, myself, Dion, that are doing, like, actively seem to care and are doing stuff. So it's crazy to me, this huge state, and really nobody cares or wants to get involved. But I do understand that some people can't. They don't want an association from their job or whatever, because what the FDA is pushing, people are buying it. They believe it. They trust all that stuff, unfortunately. And so not seeing that there's conflict of interest with pharmaceuticals and the money they receive from those pharmaceuticals, etc. I don't want to get into too much of that, but
have you ever tried the psychedelics, and have they helped?
I've tried microdosing.
Yeah.
And yes, it has helped.
Is it like a depression, anxiety thing that helps with?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It just helped to lift my mood even more, because I still, even with Kratom, it does help my depression, anxiety, but I still was struggling pretty severely with it. And so, I tried microdosing, and I didn't do it for very long. I wasn't like some people do it 3 months, or I don't know. There's different ways of doing it, but mine was just a short stint. And I was feeling a lot better for weeks afterwards, for sure.
Do you find that there's a difference with if you take one strain or another strain?
With the Kratom?
Yeah.
I do. And I know they say they're not different and yada yada, but the reds do make me mellow, relaxed, maybe a little more tired. If I've taken a whole teaspoon of red, which I don't generally, I mix them. So I mix green and white and red, because I don't want to be, especially if I was just doing the red when I first started out, and it's just like, why am I so tired? I do feel kind of tired, not horribly, like I couldn't drive tired, just like, and then I drink a little coffee and be like, oh, I feel better. And then I realized, wait, the white is good for energy. So, maybe just add a little bit of that in, and that's so, yeah. I do notice the green was great for mood. And when I used to only take red and green, and I do notice a difference. So it is kind of fascinating to me that we're told there is no difference and they're all the same tree type thing. I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe I haven't done enough research on that aspect of it yet, but I've seen quite a bit, and it's just, it's a lot to digest, though. There's so much stuff out there on it, but.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the alkaloid profile might be different. It's not necessarily like I guess strain's the wrong word, but it's kind of like the slang term everybody uses. We use it on our website, and I think depending on the time of year it's harvested, depending on how long the trees have been growing, the alkaloids,
and how long it's dried for and stuff, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any kratom plants? Do you grow it?
That's so funny. Actually, Dion gave me a plant a couple months back.
Awesome.
And so I do have one, and it's doing pretty good. And I plan to get more. We may be moving eventually here and stuff. So I'm just trying to think it through, and I want to get nice greenhouse, but I don't know if putting them outside is going to be a good idea, because it's in the house right now. So
yeah, for the winter. I have one too here in Pittsburgh, and that thing is not going outside until like July here. Right, it's not even as good as, it's not Southern California.
Does it get below zero there?
It actually is going to get below zero in a couple days here at night.
No, I'm in Northern California, more central Northern California.
Okay.
It's a lot colder up here compared to where my husband's family is in Southern California, and it's definitely a lot warmer down there.
Yeah, I've been to San Francisco, and it was a little chilly when the fog came in.
Oh yeah, San Francisco is always, the Bay Area is pretty chilly for a good part of the year.
Yeah. That's cool. Has it grown a lot? Because Soren Shade, he's actually a producer for Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia, but he also has a kratom company, and he's in West Virginia. They're growing it in a greenhouse, and he brought me a cutting, but it's never grown. It's nice and healthy and vibrant. I finally got some proper grow lights on it, but it's never produced. Does yours produce a lot of leaves? And
it has quite a few leaves on it right now, but I don't know. I haven't been doing much with it because it is winter and I know they can go dormant.
Yeah, but, that's probably what's going on.
Yeah, I haven't been messing with it. Dion did give me like a bunch of different leaves of like, I think Hiritsu. I don't know if that's how you say it, but and then some of the Kratom, and then to try, you know, fresh leaves or whatnot. So that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It did, you know, like I got a benefit for sure. So I'm like, this is okay.
Yeah, well, he brought me a bunch of fresh leaves along with the plant, and we recorded a podcast episode where we chewed them. And I was like, ugh. It's kind of like, you know, just picking a random leaf off a tree and chewing it. It's not going to taste that good. But it did have an effect, though. It was interesting. And they say, I mean, if they had, because they're working on, I know at University of Florida, they're working on like a domestic kratom production, like large scale, where they can control for the alkaloids. So eventually we're going to have that. It's probably going to take about 10 years or something, but would you, if you had the option to do fresh leaf, like given the fact that there's probably about like literally no 7-hydroxy in the fresh leaf because it's not oxidized yet, would you try that instead of the dried leaf?
Oh yeah. I definitely would do that if it gave me too the pain relief. Heck yeah.
I don't know.
In a heartbeat, you know, like I'm not looking, I don't care about, you know, like having what the alkaloids are specifically, really. I just want to get the benefits that I've gotten from it, you know, and that's the goal.
Just in general, like where do you think the kratom movement needs to go next to effectively keep this stuff legal and have good regulations? Like what maybe is like the problems, like the roadblocks we're facing, and maybe what we're doing wrong, and what could we do better?
Yeah, I definitely think directions for use would be nice to have. I know that there are, I think, at least a couple companies that do that. I don't want to mention because I don't want to seem like I'm supporting any one company, you know. But I do think having, like you said, the alkaloid profile and the percentages at a minimum, you know, the 7-hydroxymytergyne, that needs to be under 2%. You know, I have a bad feeling, and I don't want to sound all wooey or anything, but my gut feelings are very rarely wrong. That is our biggest problem. That's why, you know, people are having more problems with withdrawing from certain products, you know, by certain vendors. I mean, I don't know the intentionality of it or whatever. If it's intentional, I would assume it is, because they want people to keep coming back for their products, some of them, you know. And so that's where definitely we need the stricter regulation, where we can, you know, have directions for use and make sure that the alkaloids, I mean, I know we need more research, of course, into all the other alkaloids as well, but the ones that we know can possibly even, you know, potentially be addictive need to not, you know, be increased. And that needs to be, like, they need to be able to be prosecuted for that, in my opinion. I'm not playing around with this anymore. I'm really so sick and tired of, I can only imagine people that have been in this fight since 2014 or even before that. I know the FDA was causing some issues, and, you know, trying to get into potentially banning way back when too. But yeah, so those are some of the things I think we need to start with, like now. AKA needs to not support vendors who don't want to abide by those. Essentially, drop them from your GMP certification. I don't care if they're GMP certified or not. You do not add those alkaloids in higher concentrations. It's a bad idea. It's why we're running into the problems we are, partially, and I'm sure adulterated, possibly too, as we know, you know, with the thing in Sweden that went down and happened. So it's just, and that's why I'm like, I do not want black market kratom. Are you kidding me? You think people are dying now? You know, I know we have probably 20 million plus users. There's no doubt in my mind that we have a lot more, because not everybody comes out and says that they're taking it. People are worried. Other people are going to think, and all that kind of stuff, or their employer, or different, you know, because of the lies the FDA has purported, essentially. Sorry, I get a little passionate about that.
No, that's good. That's good. Thank you, Marcelle Morfin. So far, we don't advertise or ask for donations, but we do ask you to share this podcast on your social media, like and subscribe, rate, review, comment. That'll help us out. The music is Risey. The song is called Memories of Thailand. The Kratom Science podcast is written and produced by me, Brian Gallagher, for KratomScience.com. Take care.